This is the one habit you must develop if you want to change your life. My name is Adrienne Grace. I am a coach to high performers and an intuitive. And today I want to talk about the habit that you have to develop in order to change your life. And what is that habit? It is acting on the identity of what you wish to accomplish. So this is something that I help all of my clients with, and it's something that I've done many times over in my own life. For example, when I wanted to quit my corporate job and start my own business as an entrepreneur, I had to completely change my identity. All I knew was myself as a corporate employee. I did not know myself as an entrepreneur, and I didn't really know if I could do it. So I had to start acting as an entrepreneur. I had to start doing things like posting on social media, putting myself out there, learning back-end systems, learning how to sell services that weren't from a company, that they were actually my coaching services. And so I had to completely shift who I was. And in order to do this, I had to keep showing up every day into the new identity until it became my reality. The same thing happened about 4.5 years ago when I decided to quit drinking. I had to shift my identity. And this is how and why just willpower alone doesn't work. But if you start stepping into a new identity, for example, like when I quit drinking, if I would go out and be surrounded by people who were drinking and I was in that normal environment, I wanted to have a drink. But I just tuned into my new identity as a non-drinker, and I didn't give into what I was feeling in the moment. I stayed steadfast in this new identity, and that was how I was able to change. And the same thing can happen for you. Whatever habit or whatever you're looking to accomplish in your life, what we want to do is put our feelings aside, put aside how we are feeling in the moment, because how you're feeling in this moment is just a result of your past identity and who you are being. And there's always that little voice that's going to come in that says, oh, you'll start tomorrow. Oh, you don't have to do that today. Or who are you to post a video online, or whatever it is that that little voice is saying to you. And you have to get really good at not listening to that voice and proceeding anyway. And at first, this is something that you really have to work on, because for years and years, this voice has talked you out of doing what you've actually wanted to do. Like, for example, maybe it's that you wanted to start going to the gym and eating healthier. And then you would go out one day and you'd be going out to dinner and it would be like, oh, well, I'll start that tomorrow. Or you wanted to get up and go to the gym and it was cold and rainy out, and oh, I'll do that another time. And so that old identity won. And so in order to create a new identity, you have to think about, how does this new version of me act? How do they feel in every moment? How do they respond? And honestly, like, nothing works better than actually just taking action. So yeah, we can tune into feelings of something that we want to manifest, and I do believe that. But nothing can create change faster than actually acting on something despite how you may feel. Because this is truly where there's change that can happen. Because neural pathways in your brain, they're just used to going down the same lines over and over and over again, and they cause these grooves inside your brain. And so anytime you try to deviate from that, that energy is really strong, and it's just going to come pull you back in. So you want to recognize that that voice in your head that's talking you out of doing the thing is just because it's trying to keep you in that neural pathway. Our minds are not wired to thrive. They're not wired to have us like go after our dreams easily. They're actually only wired for survival. And the hierarchy of needs inside of our very antiquated brains is procreate, protect, and provide. So your brain just wants to protect you. It has your best interest in heart, but it thinks that protecting you means keeping you in the same identity. Because stepping into a new identity is unknown, it's unfamiliar, and the brain sees unfamiliar as a threat. So you want to get really good at noticing the dialogue that's coming up in your mind, and just be like, that's interesting. There's that voice. whose voice is that? And what you'll start to understand is it's the voice of your old identity. It's the voice of your past. And then you can ask yourself, who do I want to be in this moment? And that truly is the key. Who do you want to be in this moment, right here and right now? Because this is all we ever have, is this present moment. And this is where you create change from, the present moment. It does not matter what happened in the past. It doesn't matter how many times you've changed, how many times you've quote unquote failed. All that matters is now. And you get a choice of how you want to be in this moment. You can change your identity now. Our identity, we believe oftentimes, is this fixed construct of who we are, but it's really not. It's very malleable. We can change, we can be fluid, we can be flexible, we can be what we want to be in any moment. And it's just a matter of becoming mentally flexible. Okay, when we're mentally rigid, that is when we really cling to the past. We cling to old habits, we cling to old behaviors, and it keeps us really stuck in old patterns. And even though we want to change things, we feel like we can't because we feel fixed in this identity. But as soon as we start becoming more psychologically flexible, we're able to realize that we can adapt, that we don't have to be who we always were, that we can change, that we can create something new, that we can act spontaneously in this moment. And actually, Dr. Benjamin Hardy, who is a Harvard-trained psychologist, actually talks about this and becoming psychologically flexible. And when you start doing that, that's when you can start tuning into this future version of you, the version of you who's living the way you want to be living, who has everything that you want, who is financially free, who's in a career that you want, or has their own business, or whatever it is. And you can be like, what would they do in this scenario? They wouldn't care how they felt in the moment. They would go to the gym anyway. They wouldn't just act only when they felt inspired. They would create a video anyway. So you want to just start making a list of what would that person do? And then in every moment, realize you have a choice. You don't have to default to the old patterns of your mind. You can actually start stepping into this new identity in every moment. And that is how real change is created. And again, willpower alone doesn't work. If you just try to muscle your way through going to the gym, or muscle your way through creating a new strategy to get yourself to the next level, you'll see that oftentimes you'll do it for a while and then you dip back down into your old identity. And it's because you haven't changed who you are. When you start changing on the level of your identity, then your brain starts to catch up, like, oh, this is who we are now. You start to develop confidence. You start to develop self-trust. And confidence is a really interesting thing, because confidence actually comes from the commitments that we make and keep to ourselves. Confidence is not something inherent in most human beings. It's something that is developed. And you start to build confidence when you set a goal, set an intention, set even just one small action step, and commit to it and keep following through with it and keep following through with it, even despite that old narrative that's going on in your mind trying to keep you where you are. And so with that, as you start doing these small things, these small actions, taking actions as your future self, as this future identity, you're going to start to see the outer world shift. Now, we want to remain persistent in this, because I promise you, it's not going to happen overnight. Or maybe it will, actually. I don't want to put that in your brain. Maybe it will happen overnight for you. But you want to stay persistent in the pursuit of this, in who you are becoming, because the brain needs evidence. The brain needs to see you show up over and over and over again. And then it's only until you have this new habit of showing up that way is your brain gonna say, oh, okay, I understand. This is who I am now. And you're going to build so much trust within yourself. And you're gonna feel a lot better, because you're gonna be able to really make a commitment and keep it. I know in my past life, I used to make commitments to myself and break them all the time. And I would get really discouraged, and then I would feel a ton of shame. And I would just kind of downward spiral from that of like, why can't I change? Why can't I do this? How come all these other people succeed and have discipline and I don't have enough discipline? That is not the problem. Discipline is not your problem. I actually like to think of discipline as devotion to my future self. So it's not something that I have to steadfastly just push through. It's this devotion, it's this love of my future. And in that, then we bring our future, the future that we want, closer to us by showing up as that person day after day. So I hope this helps. Make a list of the traits of the person that you want to be. So if it's an income goal that you have, what would $1 million a year you do? What would you wear? What would you think? How would you feel? How would you act, most importantly? And then start acting that way. Now, this doesn't mean going out and spending all your money, but maybe it does mean spending money in your mind, like going to a store, being like, I could buy that if I wanted. I could buy that if I wanted. So you see, we don't actually have to do something outrageous to start to rewire new patterns in our brain. Our brain does not know the difference between imagination and reality. So you can even just start doing these things in your mind, but make that list and then start stepping into that identity and do it day after day after day. And I promise you, 30 days of doing that, you will be a completely different person. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe for more.